Dogs Trust Freedom Project help people fleeing domestic abuse put their dogs into foster. So it's a temporary fostering system, and it then returns dogs to owners once they're safe and ready to have their dog back. The Freedom Project covers a lot of areas, so London, the North East, the North West, Yorkshire, East Anglia, and Scotland. I think the only area they don't cover currently is the Midlands. However, I would say if anyone is in the Midlands and does need the project, to just call the Northwest.
Yeah. So let's just talk through the process then. So say, for example, if someone was in a situation of domestic violence, and obviously that's a really traumatic time, and there's a lot of considerations that has to go through your mind of potentially being able to leave that situation. But is it the case that that person wanting to flee has a dog that can act as a bit of a hindrance to them actually making the decision to leave the perpetrator? And so what happens is the Dog Trust Freedom Project will step in to take that dog into temporary care so that it's no longer with the perpetrator and potentially in danger, but also to give the person who's fleeing the peace of mind that their dog is safe, and once they're rehoused, you will reunite them with their dog.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, a lot of the time, a lot of people will go to temporary accommodation, refuges. You'll have a domestic abuse key worker that will help you with all this, and you can call the domestic violence helpline to get that person and to get that help. If you don't know where to start, that is the best place. If you have a dog, yeah, Dogs Trust Freedom Project will be able to help you.
Yeah.
And yes, like you say, they go into refuges because they have to flee their home. Some people stay with friends and family, but again, if they've got dogs or they've got a very busy household, they're not always able to keep their dog there. Or friends and family may care for the dog for a little bit and then it becomes too much. Sometimes it can take several months for people to be able to find new properties or to get back on their feet again and to be
Yeah.
able to be in a safe position. Every case is different with domestic abuse, and every case is usually very complex, and there is a lot more to it, so it's never kind of straightforward, and we understand that, and we were willing to work with people and give them as much time as we physically can, having their dog in foster with foster carers who are all wonderful people. They are very, very kind people. We make sure they've got experience owning dogs, so your dog
Yeah.
is really well looked after. They know what they're doing. They're heavily supported by us. We provide everything for the foster carer, so there's no financial outgoings for the foster carer or for the person fleeing. It's a completely free service for them. Dogs Trust cover the cost of vet bills and kind of food and etc.
Wow.
Anything like that. So foster carers, all we need from them is their home and their love.
Yeah. Aw. But it's so incredible. Like hearing the work that the Freedom Project does just makes me realize how complex these cases of being able to flee domestic abuse is. And before I heard about the work you do, in my mind, I would never have even considered that needing to be able to house your dog is a key inhibitor of being able to flee.
Definitely. I never realized the Dogs Trust even did anything like this until I saw this job pop up, and I thought, what an amazing thing. And then since I've been in the job and they've put me on a lot of training so I can understand more about domestic abuse. So then when I am helping people, I understand what they're going through. And I wanted to help people because I realized how much of an issue it is. A lot of people, there's a bit of a stigma around, where domestic abuse happens. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to very wealthy people. It can happen to very poor people. It can happen to male, female, anybody. And it's so sad how much of an issue it is. It needs to have awareness raised. Then more people are aware and they know what to look out for at the signs, because a lot of the time it takes your friends and family around you to be able to say, I don't think you're in a safe position, because sometimes it's hard to see it yourself. And then other
Yeah.
times it's very well hidden and only that person will know what they're going through themselves. They do say as well the most dangerous point of being in that relationship is actually once you've left. They're considered to be in more danger, so it's even more paramount that they are in the safe place, and everything is kept very confidential, and that's what we do on the Dogs Trust as well. No information is ever shared to the foster carers about that person's situation. All they're doing is just caring for the dog and offering that kind of freedom for them to be able to flee, because it can be a barrier, and sometimes perpetrators will threaten to harm the dogs or will harm the dogs as a way to get through to the owners and try and control the owners. And it's not always, as well, I think this is a very important point to stress, it's not always physical. Coercive control is a very big issue. There doesn't have to be bruises and broken bones for it to be abuse.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's really great that you were able to get domestic abuse training going into this job, because you're working with quite vulnerable people, and it's definitely great that the Dogs Trust are able to ensure that its employees are well versed and able to deal sensitively with what are difficult and, as you say, complex situations.
I've learned a massive amount since being in this job as well. And I've not been in this job very long, probably about a year and a half.
Say if someone was in a situation and they recognized they wanted to flee, but they were concerned about what would happen to their dog, what tends to happen?
Our line is public to anyone, so anyone can call us. We get calls from loads of different people. So sometimes we're in touch with the police. A lot of the time it's key workers helping that person flee. Sometimes the key workers will just try and get the help for them because it's a lot, they're going through a lot, they've got a lot to deal with. And like so, other times it is the person themselves, and sometimes it is the friends and family. When they do call up to give us the best idea of the dog and what kind of foster home it needs, we get them to fill in a dog information form, which is quite a detailed form, but it gives us a really good idea of what the dog is used to doing in the home, and, you know, whether they like other dogs and are they likely to get on with cats, will they chase cats, you know, just kind of all their bits and bobs, so we can find the best foster home. And as well, if they're scared of men, then we would place them in a female only home, you know, that kind of stuff
Cool.
as well is really important. So we have a range of foster homes, and we can never have enough foster carers. We need different people with different abilities in different areas, some with experience of large breeds, small breeds, medium breeds, people that don't mind the dog going on their couch.
Do you find the dogs tend to be quite shy?
You know, it's such a 50-50. I think it depends what they've been through, and, you know, if they actually have been abused during being at home, and then others haven't been involved but they've heard a lot of stuff, and so that can make them a little bit more nervous. But I think, you know, a lot of them do deal really well and they do settle in really quickly. And I think dogs are so great because they just want to love anyone that will love them, you know. As soon as you offer your arm to them, they just want to be your friend. And then others do take a bit longer, but by about a week on the project, they're best friends with the foster carer. And a lot of the time they're really resilient, and they do cope really well with the move. So we make sure that the dog is placed at least kind of 45 minutes to an hour away from where the person has fled from. So I take them on the journey and then drop them off with some strangers again.
Yeah, it must be quite destabilizing for the dogs then. So it definitely is like great that you go through such dog due diligence, if you like. So how many calls do you tend to get a week? Is there like an average, or?
Our rates of calls change all the time. Sometimes we can have a really busy day and get loads in on one day. Other times we can have really quiet days. It can go from being quite quiet to then when someone does call, you know, if it's an emergency situation and they need help imminently, you drop as much stuff as you can to be able to go and help them as quickly as possible. So it can change very quickly. Not a lot of the process is planned out, you know, a lot of it is last minute, and, you know, they've just decided, right, this is my time, I need to leave now, or I've got a refuge space, I have to go now. And they've not realized that Dogs Trust are there and they can help put their dog into foster, and they only realize that when, you know, they're at the refuge and the refuge won't let them take the dog in.
Can you tell us a bit more about the specific work that you do and what, for example, an average work week would look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, which is very nice, not to have to work weekends.
Yeah, and a bit of a later start than your previous job.
Exactly, yeah, a bit of a lion. We do have an emergency phone number that goes round on a rota between all the staff, and that is for anyone with a dog. If they have any vet emergencies, you know, our foster carers have that number. And luckily, I've not been on the emergency phone too many times, but so far so good. I've not had any calls. Everything's changed now because we're all working from home with COVID and everything that's going on. It's quite nice for me because it means I've got no commute to work, so I can just kind of get up 5 minutes before I start and sit down and go. So yeah, I'll get up and kind of check through my admin stuff. So check my email, see if there's any referrals come in or anything from any of my colleagues and my managers that needs dealing with. And then I will work through my day's job. So they vary kind of day to day. Sometimes I'll be interviewing foster carers. Other days I'll be taking referrals. Other days it could be a lot of my days consumed with just doing volunteer inquiries. My week is very different every week. So sometimes I can be doing returns to owners, which is lovely to be able to return a dog to the owners. The dogs are usually so excited. So that's a lovely part of the job. Sometimes I can be doing collections, so going out. So I travel all across the Northwest. We cover Manchester, Cumbria, Lancashire, Merseyside, and Cheshire. Like I say, sometimes we do out of area referrals. So sometimes I get referral from North Wales. And then, like I say, with the Midlands, if people can meet halfway, it's really helpful because then we can usually help. A lot of it kind of is driving around on the road, but I don't mind that at all, to be honest. I just have a, turn the radio on, have a little sing song. And so yeah, and then a lot of it is paperwork based, with getting a lot of stuff filled in, making sure everything is logged. Every phone call you take, you log down everything, just updating all our databases and spreadsheets really.
Okay, nice. So what would you say are the best / most rewarding bits about your job, and what are the more difficult aspects of your job?
Yeah, I mean, the most rewarding part is definitely being able to return a dog to an owner, just knowing that kind of, how much you've helped that person. I think it's so nice for the foster care as well to know how much you've helped that person and seeing the joy in reuniting them. And, a lot of people care more about their dogs than they do themselves. They want to make sure their dogs are okay. And it's so nice to see them back together again. So that is definitely the best part of the job. The more difficult parts is probably the emotional side to what the people have gone through, and trying to be as understanding as possible. Some people go into more detail than others about what they've been through, and that can be quite hard to hear. And I think as well, if the animal has suffered any kind of abuse, that's really hard to hear and hard to take in. But it's good to know that you're going to be able to help that dog and that person, even though it's kind of one of the harder sides is hearing what's gone on and just the reality of what's actually happened. I suppose the nice part is actually knowing you can do something to stop that happening again, which is good.
Yeah, for sure. And then ultimately, like you say, reunite the owners with their dogs.
Yes, which is the best.
Yeah. How long do dogs tend to be in foster care for, or does it really matter on a case by case basis?
Yeah, so we offer 6 months fostering on the project. Some people are done really quickly and they can have their dog back within the first kind of month or 2 months. Others
Wow.
take the 6, and then some may take a little longer and need some extensions, especially at the moment with coronavirus. A lot of people are struggling to find housing given the circumstances, and so at the moment we're extending a lot of placements. It isn't something we're able to do for years. We do have to put a limit on it because the dog gets very attached to the foster carers get very attached to the dog, and it becomes very hard for them to part. It's hard enough letting them go kind of at the 6 to 9 month mark. So yeah, it's hard to say. Some are very quick and some are a lot longer.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And you also mentioned COVID, which I think is probably really an important thing to talk about at the moment. Firstly, I guess from the funding point of view, but secondly, also, I think everyone is aware that obviously lockdown has led to a significant spike in domestic abuse cases. One fact I was reading was that during the first UK national lockdown, the police recorded a rise of 7% in cases of domestic abuse in comparison to the same period in the year before. How has that impacted the work that you guys are doing?
When lockdown first started at the beginning, kind of March time, and we had lots of offers of help for fostering because everyone was at home. We were very quiet on the referral front, especially in the Northwest. I'm not sure about the other regions. I think that's purely because lockdown forced a lot of people to be stuck indoors with their perpetrator. Any relief that they were getting previously, they were no longer having because no one was allowed out, unless you were going to the shops. And even then, the perpetrator may go with you, not wanting to leave you any time on your own. And it just gave perpetrators that extra chance to control somebody. That poses the threat of not being able to get help or call anybody or talk to anybody else because you're stuck in that one environment being constantly watched and heard. So we were very quiet when we knew cases were rising, which was awful.
Yeah.
And then I think as soon as the restrictions eased and people were able to go out, when people were able to go back to work, that gave them the space to be able to ask for help, talk to friends, colleagues, you know, about what's been going on and try and get that support. And then we started getting very busy. Luckily, at the moment, we are still getting a fair amount of calls come through, which is really good that people are still using us. What I think was amazing is recently you are allowed to flee domestic abuse, and that is considered an essential journey if you get stopped. Yeah, exactly. I know, because it was never said in the first one, I don't think. I never read it anywhere. Just to let people know as well, the Freedom Project has run from beginning to end. We have always been and always will be there for people. Don't ever feel like, you know, I'm worried they might be short or they're not working. Just call and we'll be able to help, because we're still running.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Have you personally experienced any particularly dangerous or tense situations?
I've been really fortunate in not being put in any kind of risky situation, which has been good. We do have a lot of security plans in place. So we have like an SOS lanyard. So when we go out anywhere to people we've never met before, even if it's just a home visit to a foster carer, just to make sure we're as safe as possible, we turn on our device and it locates our GPS. If we're ever in danger, I just have to hold the SOS button down for 4 seconds. Someone will come through and ask me if I'm okay. And if they don't have a response, or if there's something they hear that's concerning, it contacts the police straight away.
Oh, wow.
And then the police are told my location and come to where we are, which is really good. And especially with a large amount of us being females, the majority of our clients are female. And so we just felt like a female voice at the end of the phone, especially after what they're fleeing, is very helpful. So yeah, with a large amount of us being females, it's probably very important that we have the SOS device there as well. We also have a buddy system. So if there's not two of you going out, I always have to let somebody in any of the teams know where I am when I go in, and then I let them know when I come out. And if they don't hear from me, again, they put in the motions to make sure someone goes and sees if I'm okay. So again, that helps keep us safe. We don't go into the property a person's fled from either, to ensure that we don't come across the perpetrator. So we meet in a safe area very close. So, you know, kind of a supermarket close or a park close, you know, somewhere that they can get to easily enough. Not only the perpetrator is a worry, but potentially the perpetrator's friends or people they know. And sometimes they do have large amount of crowds that will be looking out for certain things in areas. So we like to try and make sure we can meet somewhere safe enough away that they can get to meet us with the dog, and vice versa. We'll return to the property if it's safe, but if it's anywhere near where they've fled from, or if they go back to the property they've fled from because it's been made safe, we still would meet in an area away from that property just in case. So luckily I've never had any incidences which have involved a perpetrator, which is very, very good. And I'm sure there's probably been the odd incident somewhere in one of the regions. I think the Freedom Project's been going for 15 years.
Wow.
Coming on to 16 soon. So yeah, I'm sure someone's got a story somewhere to tell.
You guys really know what you're doing, and it sounds like a super well thought through, safe and secure operation you guys have got running.
Yeah, they've done really well, and we're constantly updating stuff as well, especially during the pandemic, of trying to keep other people safe just due to coronavirus.
That's so great.